Heda Heda, the third generation Oshu Fujiwara, was appointed governor of the area in 1170. If you look at the pictures of Heda Heda, you can see the Caucasian features in his face. So when the Japanese made the movie, they got him pretty right. I mean, the guy who played him looked a lot like him, like the real Heda Heda. They must have paid a visit to the wax museum. But some of the other actors looked a little too Japanese for some of these Oshu Fujiwara people because they were like half Russian. Heda Heda, the third generation Oshu Fujiwara, was appointed governor of the area in 1170 and governor of Mutsu in 1181. Heda Heda became the most powerful man in Mutsu and was known as the king of northern Japan. At the same time, Yoshitsune Minamoto came to Hiraizumi, counting on Heda Heda's help. Yoshitsune was accompanied by a gold trader named Kaneuri Kichichi. History says this is a man. In the movie, they make her a woman. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that in my book. Yoshitsune was a son of Yoshitomo Minamoto, who was defeated by Kiyomori Taira in the Heiji Rebellion. And here we've got a scene where Heda Heda is welcoming Yoshitsune in front of the mansion Kiara no Gosho. And in this scene, left to right, you have Yasuhida sitting down, Heda Heda in gold standing up, Yoshitsune in blue facing him, and then the retainer Kijichi, who's obviously a man, is sitting at the front. In the movie, they make it a nice-looking lady. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that. Yoshitsune lived in Hiraizumi when he was between 16 to 21 years of age under the protection of Heda Heda. Yoshitsune practiced military arts with Heda Heda's sons, Kunihira, Yasuhira, and Tadahira, and he was determined that someday he would defeat the Heiki or the Taira clan and reestablish Genji as the leaders. And here you can see a picture of Yoshitsune the warrior in red and white. He was a very fine warrior, the hero in Japanese history, and a lot of people think he might have went on to become the Genghis Khan. There's some mystery surrounding his suicide. Okay, here's more pictures of him. He's in red and white. He was a master archer, very good with the arrow, a very good fighter, brilliant military strategist. That's why some people think he might have become the Genghis Khan. In 1180, Yoshitsune heard that his brother Yoritomo raised an army to defeat the Heiki clan, and so decided to join him. Heda Heda was against Yoshitsune's participation in his brother's attempt and tried to convince him otherwise. However, Heda Heda learned that Yoshitsune was determined and gave in. And this scene shows Yoshitsune in his red uniform going to war. I think these are authentic. This is what he really looked like. Heda Heda had built a temple named Muryakoen. This is one of the major temples along with Chusonji and Motsuji representing Hiraizumi culture. They were real art lovers. I mean, they spent a fortune in their Buddhist worship with these temples. This temple copied the Houdo pavilion of Uji Byodoin Temple in Kyoto. The temple is dedicated to Amitabha, a Buddhist god apparently. The scene here depicts a 2.4 meters high seated statue of Amitabha. In spite of the peace in Oshu, in the western part of Japan, the Minamoto and Taira clans were at war. Yoshitsune was a skillful master of surprise attacks during battles. In one battle, Yoshitsune chased the Heiki clan to Ichino Tani, present-day Kobe, and then to Yashima, present-day Takamutsu in the Kagawa prefecture, and on to Danoura, present-day Shimonoseki in Yamaguchi prefecture. Yoshitsune was also known as a superb fighter. He was particularly well known for his feats at the Battle of Danoura, where he jumped from boat to boat, killing many enemy soldiers. Yoshitsune led the Minamoto Heiki War to victory for the Genji clan. After his triumphant return to Kyoto, jealousy, developed between Yoshitsune and his brother Yoritomo. Finally, Yoritomo received an order from the imperial court to dispel Yoshitsune. He turned against his own brother who helped him come to power. I don't really like Yoritomo. I'll be discussing him in my book. I don't think Jesus liked him too much either. Yoritomo raised an army against Yoshitsune, so Yoshitsune fled to Hiraizumi, counting on Heda Heda's help. Hardships faced Yoshitsune during the trip, and they have been depicted in various plays and novels. And in these plays, the famous incident of Yoshitsune and his retainer Benkei at Ataka no Seki checkpoint is depicted. Ataki no Seki is present-day Komatsu in Ishikawa Prefecture. Disguised as Buddhist monks, Yoshitsune and Benkei tried to cross the checkpoint. Togashi, the gateman at the checkpoint, saw through their disguises but was touched by Benkei's courage and loyalty towards Yoshitsune. In the movie, they show that they tricked the guy. And I'm not sure how I'm going to handle this. So in the end, Togashi allowed them to go instead of turning them into Yoritomo. I'm talking about the Japanese production by NHK. And when I tell my story, I'm going to try to be true to history, okay? So I'm not really copying their story except the parts that I think are true. I'm basically telling history and using that Japanese movie as part of my research. Between the end of 1186 and the spring of 1187, Yoshitsune finally arrived in Hiraizumi after escaping Yoritomo's chase and many hardships. Yoshitsune was warmly welcomed by Heda Heda. Protecting Yoshitsune, however, meant that Heda Heda had to turn against Yoritomo. In 1187, Heda Heda died of an illness. He was thought to be 66 at the time. His death was a tremendous shock to Yoshitsune. The Fujiwara clan was powerful because of Heda Heda. His death increased the tension between Yoritomo and the Fujiwara clan. My ancestors were in this Fujiwara clan in the north because my ancestors came from Russia. That's why I don't look Japanese, by the way, even though my mother's from Japan. And if you'll notice, most of these Oshu Fujiwara look a little Caucasian. That's because they were. Look at these wax dummies. They tried to make them true to life. See, in the movie, the Japanese movie, they all look pretty Japanese. What can you expect? It's a Japanese production. But in real life, and the Jesuits may have influenced it to make sure that the part about the Russians was covered up. They came from Russia. Okay, in this picture, you see Heda Heda's wife. And then Heda Heda. And if you look at her, she doesn't look so Japanese. She looks like she might be Russian. Maybe she was. They say that a lot of these Oshu Fujiwara royalty married the Amishi. The Amishi were actually the Russian royals. And then there's Yasuhira there in the middle with the kind of red around his neck. And then there's Yoshitsune. And then Tadahira to the right. And that's Heda Heda on his deathbed. Yoritomo repeatedly demanded that Yasuhira, Heda Heda's successor, kill Yoshitsune. I'm really grateful for, all the victories he gave him. Terrible guy. The Fujiwara clan couldn't decide what to do about Yoshitsune, and they had internal disagreements about him. One group followed Hidehira's legacy to support Yoshitsune, and the other group followed Yoritomo's orders to try to get him killed. In 1189, history records that Yasuhira attacked the Yoshitsune group with a surprise attack on the Koromogawa house where Yoshitsune lived. They say that Yoshitsune killed himself along with his wife and children in spite of Benkei's efforts to save them from the enemy. Actually, in the movie, they show it's kind of like a mystery. Like he faked his suicide. And then they don't really show what happened to him after that. And they might have done that on purpose because some people think he went on to become the Genghis Khan. Benkei fought on at the bridge. Benkei was Yoshitsune's retainer, which meant he was willing to give his life for his master. So he fought on at the bridge in front of the main gate of the house. Long after the battle was over, Yasuhida's soldiers noticed that the arrow-riddled, wound-covered Benkei was still standing. Now, in the movie, the Japanese movie, they have it that Yasuhida was tricked, that he did not want to kill Yoshitsune, but I think it was his uncle tricked him and sent the soldiers from out underneath him. I think that is what really happened. The reason I say this is because Jesus told me that all of my Oshu Fujiwara ancestors went to heaven, and I don't think Jesus would have let Yasuhida into heaven if he was a creep to murder Yoshitsune just because he wanted to save his own butt because of Yoritomo. I will be discussing that in my book. Yasuhida's soldiers noticed the arrow-riddled, wound-covered Benkei was still standing. So when the soldiers crossed the bridge to look more closely, Benkei fell to the ground, having been dead in a standing position for some time before that. This is known as the standing death of Benkei. And here he is. This is such a tragedy. Satan's responsible for this. I will be discussing this in my book, how Jesus and Satan felt about this. And this is how this poor guy died. He was very brave. He died and he saved the life of Yoshitsune by holding off the people that wanted to kill his master. It's a mystery what really happened to Yoshitsune, though traditional history records that Yoshitsune killed himself along with his wife, but it's a mystery. So, according to traditional history, Yasuhide gave in to pressure from Yoritomo, betrayed his father's will, and drove Yoshitsune to suicide. However, Yoritomo accused Yasuhira of giving refuge to Yoshitsune. Actually, I think he was doing that. And what was wrong with it? Yoshitsune did nothing wrong. Yoritomo sent troops to Hiraizumi from Kamakura and attacked Yasuhira in 1189. Yasuhira burned the Hiraizumi house by himself and escaped to the north. However, he was killed by Jiro Kawada, his retainer. Following this incident, the Fujiwara clan, which had governed Oshu for 100 years, ceased to exist, at least openly. In my story, I have it that they went underground and lived with the Emishi and went back to their Russian royals. The Emishi lived in the mountains and in the caves, and they knew how to hide. When Yoritomo's troops from Kamakura entered Hiraizumi, the whole town was burning. Much treasure was found in the remaining warehouses, surprising the samurai from Kamakura. The scenery in Hiraizumi produced a lasting impression on Yoritomo. When he built temples in Kamakura, he modeled them after Hiraizumi. Actually, I don't think it was religious. I think he was greedy. Those temples were all made of gold. The scene depicts Yoritomo watching Hiraizumi burning. In my book, I'm going to be exploring this and how Jesus and Satan felt about all this. And there's Yoritomo watching the burning of Hiraizumi. He was an ungrateful wretch. Just took advantage of people. Here's the last scene. You can see that Yasuhide. I think the reason Yasuhide burned the temples is because he felt like it was a sacrilege for Yoritomo to enter these Buddhist temples, and he wanted to burn them all down. 500 years after the fall of the Fujiwara clan, Hiraizumi was governed by Date clan. During this period, the haiku poet Matsuo Basho visited Hiraizumi and wrote a verse lamenting the fate of Yoshitsune. The summer grass is all that's left of ancient warrior's dream. Kind of a tragic ending. In my book, I will discuss what happened to them after the fall, and it's kind of interesting. They thought they vanished, but they went underground.